that good? Is it good? Okay, I'm good. Is she gonna come? Do we sit now? Oh my gosh. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm gonna say hi to Naomi.
Okay. Yo, guys. Everyone, kind of quiet down. Beautiful. Welcome. Nice seeing all of you lovely faces here. Welcome to CU Events Week, the evening session. This whole week we've been doing finding freedom in multiple places of life. Today we're doing finding freedom in habits that might derail us. So look forward to that. We have Joe here, who will be talking to us as well. Yeah, and we're having more events tomorrow as well. So I'll talk to you about that at the end. But bang. Anyway, I'm gonna start by just praying. It's a bit weird prayer if you're not used to it. If you don't know, if you blank your ears to it. If you want to join in, please join in. Just close your eyes, kind of like do it in your heart. But yeah, there you go. Yo, God, thank you for like bringing us all here and letting this all happen. I pray that you do what you want to do tonight, wherever that is. Yeah, Jesus' name I pray, man. Okay, bang. So, Joel, you want to come up? Nice. So, yeah, you're a tall guy. You need to lift up a little bit.
Cheers, mate.
There you go. First question. What's your name?
Yeah, so my name's Joe. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, great. And I'm from York, which is far up north, about to be totally roughshod by Storm Dudley at some stage and other storms. Much safer down here in Norwich. Well done for picking a good place in the country. York's lovely. It's, chocolate smells in the city, cosy kind of city centre vibes. A bit like Norwich, actually. So both our cities share cathedrals. Both our cities are pretty cosy given the city centre, and both of our universities are campus-based universities about 20-25 minutes away from the city centre. So there's lots of similarities, except I think your campus is tons better than York's campus. Honestly, I'm not just saying that to flatter you. York's campus is like the 1.0 of yours. Like, it's horrible brutalist architecture, a man-made lake that costs more money for them to clean than pay the fine of, so they just refuse to clean it. Whereas yours, it's like Centre Parks walking around here. It's lovely.
Basically, York's the ghetto of UEA.
Yeah, the campus. The city centre.
Okay, fair play.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, stupid question time.
Go on.
Right? If you were to be a body part of an elephant, what would you be and why?
Nice. Well, so actually there's a very famous illustration about lots of people feeling different parts of the elephant to try and ascertain what God or religion could be. And I think often in that illustration we all imagine ourselves right back looking at the picture, looking at all of the dumb people feeling different parts of the elephant and go, I can see the whole elephant. So is it a cop-out to go literally the whole elephant, or... Okay, the trunk of the elephant.
And why trunk? Why trunk?
I could clean that lake in York, maybe. Filter some of the water through.
Okay, that's mad. Boss, I think you've got it from here.
Brilliant.
So, please welcome Joel to do his talk.
Okay, thanks so much. Thanks, that's really kind. So I'm just going to set up a few things on the stand. As I do that, why don't you turn in twos, threes, whoever brought you here. What's your instinctive reaction to this topic tonight, okay? What's your instinctive reaction to this topic tonight? What kind of images come to mind? What kinds of scenarios come to mind? So turn to twos and threes, chat about that for 2 minutes, and then I'll bring you back. Go for it. Guys, this one. Am I okay to put this somewhere? Yeah, am I okay to put this somewhere? It's just sorry, that one. Apologies. I'm going to need someone to put it through as well. So, shall I? Okay, 30 seconds left. Brilliant. Oh, I'm fit. You very well kind of just settled into a bit of a lull there, anticipating me to bring you back. So well done. Keep those images in mind. Keep those kind of words, expressions, scenarios in mind as we come to tonight's topic. And I hope as we navigate through this evening, there'll be something here for everyone. Okay. I recognise this can be both a heavy topic. Perhaps some of us just feel completely stuck in ruts that are totally inescapable. But for others of us, perhaps we've got friends in mind, family in mind, whatever, that we think, oh, I'd just really like to see real change in their life. The one thing I will say is, right the way through tonight, I'm hoping that we can land somewhere that means a solution and doesn't just mean us kind of sharing a bit of a pity party about all of the things that are awful in our lives and not really reaching anywhere. I'm hoping that you'll be even able to see the sense and conclusion in Jesus being the one who has the power and the freedom that you crave. But we're going to take a while to get there. I want to set this up well. And so if we could go on to the next slide. Okay, so I want to tell you a bit about one of my best friends, Nino, who's on the left of this photo, okay? Now, I'm really giving you a bit of a window into my kind of life here, right? Nino's one of my best friends. Here's a picture of me and my mates at school. I know, man, that afro. Now, Nino, I bring up Nino because I think when all of us think of this topic, finding freedom from habits that derail us, probably all of us have in mind that one person who is like genius at everything, but just constantly sabotages their own life. And that person, with permission to share, is Nino, okay? Let me tell you a bit about him. Now, I was super jealous of Nino at school, okay? We were best mates, and I fronted bands. I won Battle of the Bands, but he was always better at guitar. I remember this one moment he walked out of a music lesson after flushing the toilet and turned around to the music teacher and said that toilet was in the key of B flat. And I'm not even joking. And the music teacher was like, that's astonishing. You're right. And like checked it and everything. All right. So he was pitch perfect. He was amazing at guitar. Like he did all of that like eclectic experimental stuff where he like played a guitar with a spanner and made it sound angelic and, you know, all sorts of stuff. He also had the gift of the gab. He was a smooth talker. All the girls fancied him at school. And I to my shame, and my one chance to try and get with someone, walked to their door, knocked on their front door, asked them out on the doorstep, how lame is this? And then I got a maybe, but probably not. And then I had to like wait for 3 months until eventually I got a yes. So sort of a happy ending. We're not together now, so it's like way back in school. But and he just, all the girls flocked to him. So he had the gift of the gab, he fronted bands, he was the life and soul of every party. And people gravitated towards him. He's a great guy. But he constantly, despite all of this seeming innate genius, just sabotaged his own life time and time again. He had a perfectly good music career lined up ahead of him. And yet, time and time again, his party antics got in the way of him really knuckling down and tutoring guitar or like joining function bands and really, you know, going to the stars with them. He wrote his own music as well, which was really good. And you can imagine, he's pitch perfect, so of course he's going to write good music. He was a good composer, but again, he'd just end up sabotaging his own life through party antics, drinking, drugs. You got it. He once, and I think this is peak Nino, he joy rode, if I can use that in the past sense, he joy rode a car that was owned by one of our mutual friends' parents at their house party and got in trouble with the police, right? And this is the same party that he marched in and pretty much got an applause at, okay? Time and time again, his habits seem to get in the way, and he's the person I imagine, with permission, because he's all right now, mostly, he's the person I imagine with that innate genius to really go somewhere and just constantly found himself stuck in ruts. I think peak Nino, though, came New Year's Eve about 4 years ago. Both of us were in a function band together called Spandau Ballet, a play on, well, you guessed it. Spandau Calloway. Spandau Ballet is the actual name of the band. So it's like taking one of my friends' names. And we all flocked there for a mutual friend's house party, New Year's Eve kind of get together. And we played through our set and it went really well. One of our other friends, Luke, got his uncle to bring too many lights and a smoke machine. So of course, like, it was wild. But then it got to about 1:45, and Nino by this stage was just sloshed. His drinking got out of control again, and he persuaded the party host, because he's got this innate gift of the gab, for us to go back on and carry on playing. We're like, Nino, we've played through 2 sets. We can't carry on this. We've got 15 minutes to go till midnight. We don't want to ruin things. He's like, no, honestly, it's fine. And I'm like, oh no, how's this going to go? So Nino's playing drums. We end the set with Superstition. Some of you know Superstition, Stevie Wonder. It's got that bam, 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 da, 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 and we're ending on that riff. And, it's going great. It's going great. And I'm like, well, why did I needn't bother. I needn't worry. And then suddenly, I hear a shuffle from behind me. Nino's got up, t-shirt bedraggled, like shirt bedraggled past his waistline down to his knees, tie round his head. He's had a lot to drink. He picks up his drumsticks and he decides, hello Wembley, let's chuck them out. So chucks his drumsticks out. One of them pings off a nearby heater in this kind of small marquee in the garden. The other slams poor unassuming friend of the family, Jane, square in the forehead. Jane is literally concussed at this stage. She kind of like is sort of knocked out, comes to her senses, goes back inside to the lounge where she's nursing a massive bump on her head and legitimately has concussion for 3 days. Nino's none the wiser and just shoves a flute champagne glass of something in my hand. And then we all toast in the new year. And that is my enduring memory of Nino. Time and time again, he's got this innate talent, innate genius. We all feel like he's got maximum potential to fly to the stars and back in whatever sphere of life he wants to turn to. But he constantly sabotages his own life. And all of us perhaps are a bit like that, and I'll get onto that in a minute. But if we just go to the next slide, I'd love for you to discuss these questions amongst yourself. Maybe you've got a friend like Nino in mind, like me. What 1 or 2 habits would you say are very you? Okay? Or describe a friend well. What kinds of habits have you consciously adopted to try and make your life better? Has it worked? And then what 1 or 2 habits do you wish you could escape? Okay, so just chat again and feel free to go as deep as you like to be. You don't need to be super invasive with each other, but if you'd like to be, that's all right. Chat in 2s and 3s about these questions for 5 minutes or so, and then I won't hear your responses, don't worry, but go for it for 5 minutes. Play some music, maybe? All right, move on to question 2 if you haven't already. All right, move on to the third question if you haven't already. All right, 1 minute left.
When you do that will be on.
I think it might be a slightly dodgy connection. All right, 30 seconds. Okay, Joe, we'll go on to the next slide, if that's right. I think it's dodgy. Carry on chatting. Brilliant. Okay, sorry to the musicians. I've sort of totally sabotaged your setup up here, but forgive me. All right, so I've introduced a bit about my friend Nino. Perhaps you discussed about a friend yourselves in your discussions, particularly with that first question in mind. But here's the truth behind that person that we hold in our mind when we think innate genius
they could have gone so far. Can we go next slide, please, Jot? Second-hand frustration with habits, i.e. them over there, they could have achieved so much with their potential, actually has a lot to say about us as individuals and our own lives. And some of you have just chatted about that in the questions that I gave you. And here's the first thing. We all dream of the good life beyond our circumstances. So any second-hand embarrassment at frustration at others basically is a sort of frustration with ourselves. And it's because tonight's title is Finding Freedom from Habits That Derail Us. That very word derail is train language, isn't it? It assumes a track or a journey heading towards a destination. All of us here, whether we're religious or not, have some conception of the good life, something to aim for, something to drive at. And all of us here would say there are things that constantly thwart that journey from happening smoothly. But also all of us would say what happens often is circumstances get in the way. Circumstances end up sabotaging our vision of the good life. Let me give a very trivial example. When I first started learning to play guitar, I couldn't like pluck up, I'd just pluck down constantly, right? I don't know if anyone else did this weird thing. So it meant that all of my licks, all of my solos were like me constantly frantically strumming down and not realizing I could pluck up as well. But because that's the way I learned to play guitar, I didn't have any lessons, I just couldn't unlearn that for ages. So I just constantly play solos strumming down. Now, what would have saved me from that habit would have been if my mum could afford for me to have professional guitar tutoring so that I could not learn that habit in the first place or unlearn that habit and learn a better one. Circumstances dictated that. It was nothing to do with my kind of innate moral compass or anything. That was just the surrounding environment I found myself in, and probably a bit personality. You know, some people do teach themselves guitar and innately learn to strum down and strum up, and solos are fine. But that wasn't the case for me. And so I saw that as a minor hurdle on my road to the good life. And the good life for me in that circumstance, I guess, was playing guitar really well and fronting bands and being popular and probably getting girls. I wasn't a Christian at this stage at secondary school. All of us imagine a good life detached from our circumstances, detached from our personality, where we're basically entirely free to dictate our own destiny, our own future. But of course, life crowds in and gets in the way. Next. Good habits are hard to make a habit of. Good habits are hard to make a habit of. Part of the reason you're here tonight is because all of you have tried to overhaul habits in your life that constantly leave you stuck in ruts. And you've tried. Behavior modification, though, only gets you so far. It's not enough to just go, you know what, I'm going to try better. I'm going to take these old habits, put them to one side, and just instantly adopt these new habits. It doesn't work like that. All of us know that from the inside out, don't we? All of us know that in our friendship groups. All of us know that when we've tried to work on an essay and procrastinated away for a week. All of us know that. Next one. Bad habits can be funny until real life catches up, all right? I found Nino's antics for a long while hilarious, and he did, and lots of people did. It was hilarious when we all went to Reading Festival and he had the smart idea of bringing tons of luxury items with him and a one-person tent because he didn't want to share with any kind of weirdos that were going to smell loads and not shower and whatever. But he only brought a one-man tent that wasn't big enough for his airbed. So he blew up his airbed. You can imagine what happens next. Thursday night of Reading Festival, torrential rain. His airbed is inside this one-man tent, just constantly like flaring up the sides. Rain pours in, all of his stuff is ruined, literally everything. And the very next night, he has to move into another person's tent. This is what I mean. Innate genius, some smart ideas. Never quite cut it, though. It doesn't pay off. And all of us find those bad habits funny when it affects you for like 3 days at Reading, right? But what about the constant antics of partying, drugs, sex, drugs, that basically skimp on Nino's responsibility, his sense to live a life well lived? Because probably some of those habits, as he'd admit now, were there as hurdles that sabotaged him driving towards a career as a professional musician, as part of a function band. That's not his main job now, and he's fine with that. He's made peace with it. But those earlier habits along the way, can you see how they constantly sabotaged him from being, I guess, responsible enough to go for the good life? Now, I'm not laying into him, because the very next one is this. Second-hand embarrassment often points to first-hand frustration. What do I mean by that? All of us can think of someone over there who constantly sabotages their own life. But really, our frustration, if we're honest, with those people, is the fingers pointed back at us. Either we don't help those people well enough to get on the right track, or, more pertinently, it reveals all sorts of frustration with our own productivity, with our own vision of the good life, with our own ways of frustrating our life. Here's a trivial one that actually I still regret quite a bit. Football Manager. Does anyone play Football Manager? Put your hands up. Right. All my life, I pretty much lost my entire summer between second year and third year addicted to getting Swansea City to the Champions League. And I achieved it. On a really hard mode, and I aced it. But do you know what? I missed so many opportunities to do stuff with my friends, to just not be a loner inside lame. I did some stuff, but there was always more stuff I could have packed in that summer. And I pretty much lost the lion's share of 6 weeks, just totally engulfed in a game that I couldn't. I'd wake up, I'd go, right, I'm not even gonna look at Football Manager today. But I just couldn't help it. There's something in me was like, yes, that's going to be really good for my immediate gratification. So I just burrowed into it, and I did that for 6 weeks straight. And all of us have been there in cycles of gaming. And I'm going to be honest, because I think we need to be. We've all been there in cycles of gaming where actually we end up opening other tabs up and looking at other things and doing other things. And it just compounds your sense of shame, doesn't it? It ruins you. You're like, why did I do that? Why did I just spend days, weeks looking at that, doing that, playing that, but also doing that? And it's a habit that just feels utterly inescapable. And so often, the second-hand embarrassment that we feel at others is frustration at us thwarting our own goodness, thwarting our own vision of the good life in lots of ways. Next slide. I've been reading this wonderful book recently. It's just come out last month, called The Power of Regret, How Looking Backward Moves Us Forward. And Daniel Pink links literally the term bad habits. He conducts a massive research project with 4,000 plus respondents. Bad habits constantly came up and was constantly associated with what he calls deep structure of regret. Now I'll just read this out for us. Bad habits, words and phrases like these offer clues to the deep structure. And as they're piled up, like thousands of dots of colour in a Pontilist painting, they began to take shape. The shapes span the lives of all of us and infiltrate every aspect of how we think, feel, and live. Now that is both simultaneously really searing analysis, isn't it? But also kind of terrifying. Because all of us have those habits in mind that we know sabotage our vision of the good life. And imagine those habits seeping into every dimension of who you are, affecting your sense of self-worth, your identity, what you drive after, how you feel, what you think, who you form relationships with. That's what Daniel Pink would say about bad habits. They're symptomatic of something that's going on at a deeper level. Next slide. And here's two graphs that I just thought were fascinating here, or bar charts. On this side, you've got how often do you look back on your life and wish you had done things differently. He asked 4,000 plus respondents. Look how many said never. Isn't that interesting? All of us, despite all of the songs and pop culture that talks about just live with no regrets, everything happens for a reason, all of us are swamped down with things that if we could go back in time, we'd change. Habits that we wish we could redeem, but we're powerless. I've lost that time playing Football Manager between second and third year. I can't go back and change that. And all of us have those same things too. And on this side, now this is super interesting. This was a survey conducted of a university campus. And they asked the students at this university campus, what biggest regrets do you have? Now, obviously it's going to come out education, isn't it? But it's probably because all of us at this age and stage of our lives imagine the good life as acing our degree. And then once we ace our degree, we'll then get a grad job. And once we ace the grad job, we'll then ace a family. And then once we ace a family, we'll be in that big house. We'll be in that cozy, nice neighborhood. Or we'll be living a real fulfilling career life where we're constantly jumping onto the next promotion. But guys, where does it end? And even if you get there, can you guarantee that it will fulfill you enough so that you can look back on the regrets of your life and go, I'm free of those. They don't matter. I'm not sure we can. Next slide. But I want to throw this back over to you, okay? I don't want to just talk at you. I think the gem of this week is that all of us are contributing in some way together from our different perspectives. So I'd love you to just think about these two questions. Think about them as honestly as you'd like to. The first is, what's the best solution or solutions for escaping bad habits? And the second is, what do you think having regrets about the past shows us about being human? Okay, what's the best solutions for escaping bad habits? What do you think having regrets about the past shows us about being human? All right, so just turn in 2s and 3s again, chat for 5 minutes or so. Be as deep and personal as you want to be, but don't worry about going there if you don't want to. So just share on this, and then I'll call us back in 5 minutes. Okay, move on to the second question if you haven't already. Okay, 1 minute left. All right. Again, hope that was enriching and helpful. Have those things in mind as we carry on this evening. On to the next slide, Jot. Okay, so I tried to come up with a few solutions. These are solutions that I've seen kind of just banded around in the media, banded around in different kind of schools of philosophical perspective. Now, one of those, and I think it comes instinctively to all of us because we can all imagine a mentor or a family friend or that person we go to for advice, is just get good people around you, right? That could be one way. But there are a couple of issues with this, because I do know success stories where people have been really well grounded, really well formed, really well taught, and end up living pretty kind of successful together lives. But there's a few issues with this. The first is, what's your vision of what's good? Because for some people, it's fulfillment in their career. For some others, it's earning lots of money. For some, it's being rich relationally. For others, it's being able to serve others with the stuff that they have so that they can build up other communities that are waylaid by bad habits. What is it? And even before you get there, where do you get your sense of good and not good, bad from? All of us need a vision for reality that is big enough, that encompasses not just our own self-interests, but the interests of other people. And where do we get that from if we work back from there being no God, if we work back from there being no religion? See, if we're all just destined for the vast extinction and the death of everything, nothing really ought to matter. We're just kind of artificially creating the sense of a value system and belief system that proffers other people in good ways. But you can't prove that in any way. Just live for yourself. Just live to constantly sabotage your existence. Be a slob. Buy everything on credit. Do what you want. There's nothing stopping you. But perhaps the deeper thing is, because I personally do work from a Christian conviction on this. I didn't always, grew up in a non-religious home. But the other thing I've seen time and time again is people are let down by systems. And systems are made by people, which means that not all people are perfect in their habit choices. All of us in the room would probably have things in mind tonight that they want to change. And what does that mean? Well, it means that at some stage in your life, you can get enough good people around you, but someone will let you down. And do you know what? You yourself will probably let someone down at some stage. So that doesn't really work. Pink tries to get there. If we just go on to the next slide. He says this: all deep structure regrets reveal a need and yield a lesson. With connection regrets, the human need is love. Not love only in a romantic sense, but a broader version of love that includes attachment, devotion, and community, and that encompasses parents, children's, siblings, and friends. So that's brilliant, but the very idea of community, a village, some would say, being the thing that is enough to shape you and form you in the right direction, also hits obstacles. In the book Modern Romance by Aziz Ansari and Eric Klinenberg, they describe a situation where one partner romantically pins all their hopes and dreams on their other partner to give them what outside influences like family members and trusted friends can also give them. And he says this: we come to one person and we are basically asking them to give us what once an entire village used to provide. Give me belonging. Give me identity, give me continuity, but give me transcendence and mystery and awe all in one. Give me comfort, give me edge, give me novelty, give me familiarity, give me predictability, give me surprise, and we think it's a given. And toys and lingerie are going to save us with that. See, here's the issue. All of us, even if we think that the best solution to this is relying on a village of people that can form us and help us, all of us instinctively inside lurch towards pinning our hopes and dreams on one person to fulfill us or one thing to fulfill us, and we get swamped up in addictive tendencies that we can't break free from. That was me with Football Manager, but perhaps it's some of you with your love interests. Perhaps it's some of you with your fiancés, boyfriends, girlfriends, or even your family. My mum relied on one of her elder family members, and he royally let her down in awful, abhorrent ways that I won't leave much to the imagination. So we can't just turn to a village of people. We need to turn elsewhere. Next slide. Perhaps it's escapism. Perhaps that's the thing that can, help us to get through our habits. We just ignore that they're there, detach ourselves from it happening and live in the moment. But here's the issue. Just next slide. This is a study commissioned by Sony at the University of Manchester. And it revealed some fascinating findings when comparing 18 to 25s, pretty much all of us in this room, compared to over 50s. This is what it found. Most under 25s now expect to move home on average 14 times compared with their elders. Interesting. The average under 25 will now have a circle of 113 social media friends in comparison to the 15 close friends of an over 50. 1 in 7 under 25s will have 20 or more partners now before marriage, compared to just 3% of over 50s. Next slide. This led to this conclusion. The younger generation, that's you, are switching friends, partners, jobs, and even homes in search of the one. Now, the one here isn't a romantic partner exclusively, because it's already talked about partners, hasn't it? We have this inbuilt drive within us to latch ourselves onto something to be our everything, and then wait till it lets us down and our life's a wreck. And it happens time and time and time again. Even if we wanted to escape, we can't. It's like the allure is too irresistible. And we're constantly restless, searching fulfillment in a whole dozen places, but never really feeling rested, never really feeling fulfilled, never really feeling settled. But perhaps there's one more. Divine being, okay? Now, that doesn't just include Christianity. It could include all sorts of things. Just the next slide. And let me just give you a little thought scenario. Suppose you're walking along the road and you see a pile of rocks, just a pile of rubble there. What might you conclude? you might conclude that they fell off a cliff or something by accident, that a wall's ruined, and they don't mean anything, they don't point anywhere. But suppose you to walk along that same path, and instead of a rubble of rocks, you see an arrow. And the arrow's shaped in a direction. Now, several philosophers, theologians, and others point to these inbuilt desires for the good life, to not be swamped in our habits. Those are signposts pointing back to something beyond ourselves, something that drives us forward to a life well lived. And what does that make best sense of? Not atheism. It probably gets you to something out there. Just go on to the next slide. Go back. So there's a quote I forgot to put in there, but basically Pink talks about us driving towards a life well lived. And get this, if we're going to escape any habit in our life, he says, we have to latch ourselves onto something or someone bigger than ourselves. So we can't escape that. And that's perhaps where divine being comes into play. But why the Christian faith in particular? Well, I'll just leave you with a little phrase before we dive into the books you've got on your tables, and it's this. What if the divine being that we're meant to be tethered with, that can help us escape the habits and ruts of life, turns the arrow back on us to reach us? That's the Christian faith. And we're going to see in a minute, I believe, why if you're going to escape habits in your life in the now and experience degrees of freedom, but if you want to escape every habit and have all of those kind of good habits beyond behavior modification forever, you're going to need to look at Jesus. And here's why. Just let's open up the books that you've got in front of you and turn to page 8 with me. And we're just going to spend the next few minutes in one of the stories in this book. Brilliant. Okay, so just as you're getting there, we're going to read from the little number 13. Now, just as you're getting there, this is a biography of Jesus' life, as told by people that witnessed what Jesus did, who Jesus was, how he taught, what he taught, those kinds of things. And it's worth saying at this stage, some of us might think, this is baloney, like why would I trust the Bible? And that's a really good question. I think there's tons of historical evidence, certainly I found as an atheist at one stage, to rely on this being ancient newspaper reportage and not just some moral tale. But I'm going to leave that there, and feel free to come up and chat with me about that afterwards. But let's look into this story. I just encourage you, if you're not religious here tonight, just leave those preconceived ideas initially about what you're reading behind. Lean into the story and ask, look, what might it be saying to me? Okay? That's what I did. And as we can see, we need a solution to everything that has already gone before. Perhaps it could be here. Okay, let me read the opening line from little number 13. Once again, Jesus went out beside the lake. A large crowd came to him, and he began to teach them. Okay, so this kicks off with Jesus teaching beside a lake. There's a large crowd that comes to him as he teaches, and we're really early on in Mark's stories about Jesus here, but he's already, Mark, trying to show us something really crucial. See, first is that fresh off the back of turning up and acting and talking like God, people are flocking to Jesus, as if he's got something deeply special to say, accompanied by extraordinary shows of power. Jesus is a walking, talking human, the same as you and I, yet provokes this utterly magnetic response from great throngs of people, great crowds of people. Mark is showing us here that Jesus actually is the divine Messiah, the King, from the off. But the second thing he's showing us is that Jesus is to be a God who isn't picky, selective, but in one sense, radically inclusive with who he chooses to be with and teach by simply teaching everyone he welcomes to him. Just next slide, mate. Everyone needs to go to Jesus with their habits. That's you, I, everyone at the University of East Anglia. This God has a call for every person, and no one is too proud from their invitation to wholeness in him. No one is too big for their boots to get away from their neediness for him, and no one is too lowly, humbled, and broken to come before him. I'd invite you all, could it be that this Jesus and his claims about you and reality itself is the real way out of your hurried, stuck in rut lives that you can't escape? So that's the first thing to bear in mind. But let's read on in the story, little number 14. As he walked along, he saw Levi, son of Alphaeus, sitting at the tax collector's booth. "Follow me," Jesus told him. And Levi got up and followed him. While Jesus was having dinner at Levi's house, many tax collectors and sinners were eating with him and his disciples, for there were many who followed him. When the teachers of the law, who were Pharisees, saw him eating with the sinners and tax collectors, they asked his disciples, "Why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners?" Okay, so here's the second thing. Jesus knows what we're like and still welcomes us as we are. This is the quirkiest of misfits going, okay, at this party. This is like if Come Dine With Me weren't to look like Come Dine With Me at all, but some kind of horror show meal from hell, okay? There's all sorts of people around the table that ought not to fit together. Levi is a tax collector, which in that culture was basically synonymous with scum. He took from the Jewish people for his own gain. He penalized people in need. He worked for the authorities. He didn't deserve a look-in at the teacher of a grand rabbi like Jesus. And you've got all sorts of other people there around that the teachers of the law, the very religious leaders of the time, end up calling Jesus out on. They go, "Jesus, why are you eating with them? You're much better than them. You don't deserve to stick with those lowly, stuck in ruts, habitually deprived people who constantly mess up, who constantly self-sabotage their lives." That's exactly what happens. Jesus welcomes people exactly as they are. The Greek sense, actually, of the little number 15, Jesus was having dinner, the sense of that is Jesus is reclining back in his seat. That's the original Greek translation. That's beautiful, isn't it? That's not just come to my house and or go to a house and I'll have dinner with you. That's I'm reclining back and enjoying your company. I'm dignifying you as a valued human being that's not just a product of your circumstances or habits. That's what's going on here. I know some of you right now just might feel like, I've got too many flaws. I can't get close enough to this kind of God. What if he knows me properly and sees me properly? Well, guys, I've got news for you. If this God is real, he sees right into the deepest recesses of who you are and knows you even better than you know yourself. One of my favorite lyrics from a 1975 song, "Sincerity is Scary," goes like this. How can you think you're controlling how you're perceived when you're only intermediately versed in your own feelings? And the sense of that lyric is, we don't know ourselves anywhere near as well as we think we do. We don't know why we're motivated to kind of while away our days doing stuff that we don't want to do but end up doing. We don't know why we hurt people all the time. We don't know why we want that vision of the good life. But God does. There is one out there who knows you better than you know yourself. And not just that, he's come close and he reclines round the dinner table with you. That's the sense of this. But the third thing to bring in mind is this. Jesus loves us deeply enough to offer true freedom. So crowds flock to Jesus. He teaches everyone. Everyone needs a bit of him. And now he's reclining at this table with the religious leaders there. It's an awkward dynamic. Looks like a bit of a horror show. But Jesus is reclining, enjoying the company of those that have come to him, however needy, however broken. And then we get some of the most famous words that Jesus ever uttered. Just a little number 17. On hearing this, Jesus said to them, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but those who are ill. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners." Now think back to all of those habits that constantly self-sabotage your lives. Jesus is saying there is an explanation for why you constantly curtail your own life, for why you constantly get yourself stuck in ruts, for why you constantly go after things and make them fake gods when they can't complete you but let you down. And he says the reason that that's the case is because on the inside, all of us are sick. All of us, in our wanting the good life, chose in the beginning to wrench ourselves away from the only one that could complete us, Jesus himself. And so we set off this pattern of creation, everything around us and inside our own hearts, being tainted with this virus-like disease, sickness called sin. And sin sounds like a very archaic religious word, but basically what it means is we constantly go our own way, achieve selfish ends, and don't care about the consequences because we don't care about the God who made us. We choose not to know him. We choose not to recognize his authority over our lives. And what ends up happening is we nurse these cesspits of bad regrets, of sin, of all sorts of stuff that constantly works against our freedom. And Jesus says, I love you enough that I'm not just going to let you get off. I'm going to show you the true diagnosis. I'm not just going to butter you up with self-help compliments. I'm going to show you that your heart needs me. That you can get all of the kind of strategies in place, the good habits, the self-help mechanisms for you to have a successful 20s period, a successful 30s, a successful 40s. But at some stage, you're going to come a cropper. Because constantly, we all live with regrets. I don't need to persuade you of that. I do, and all of you do. And it's because of this sickness that sits within us, that works against God's best for us, because of our detachment from him in the beginning. It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but those who are ill. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. But get this, Jesus calls himself a doctor. And what do doctors do? Doctors work to heal their patients. Doctors don't just come to give a crushing diagnosis. They work to heal their patients from the inside out. And of course, doctors can't do that in every circumstance. But what if the arrow pointing towards something out there points back to us? What if God, the perfect God-man, the one who has never given himself into a bad habit, could come down to us and not just recline at the table with us, welcoming us as we are, not just give us a diagnosis for our hearts, but come and take our place where all of our consequences for our bad habits would take us and die for us to pay the penalty for us walking out on him. To pay for that sickness that invades our world and everything we love and hold true and good and beautiful. Jesus came to redeem all of that. Redeem basically means to entirely repurpose for good things. All of those bad moments in your life, all of those habits that constantly derail us, Jesus is in the business of putting you back on the tracks. And not because of your moral behavior, but because of his regeneration of your heart. That is the good news of Jesus, and that's why Christian faith, as represented in Jesus' sacrifice at the cross, is the only thing that will rescue you from your habits in the long run. You can turn to self-help, you can turn to coping mechanisms, they'll get you a bit far, but they won't get you the whole way. And that's more because as well, when we look to Jesus, he gives us a diagnosis of our hearts that actually has consequences in the long run. See, for all of the people that we hurt around us, for all of the ways in which we sabotage our own lives, Jesus says, regardless of whether we think we're on the right track or not, we're heading for a derailing, a huge one. Because Jesus, when he looks at his world, won't stop at not calling out evil. He chooses to call out evil, injustice, things that invade systems of thought and belief and behavior in us from our hearts, but also out there in our world. And he chooses to say, you know what, one day, given now that I've risen back from the dead, I will come back and bring justice to bear on the things that constantly saddle us with regret. Because it's not right. It's not part of the world that I'm remaking. And so Jesus will not only go to the cross so that we can be restored in relationship with him, he will go and rebuild an entire new world where he will wipe every tear from your eye, where he will rid all systemic evil, where he's already paid the penalty for all of the consequences of your habits, and where he will remake your heart now so that you can live in tandem with him as you align more with him, getting closer to the likeness that he calls you to be in. And then one day will give you an entirely new body where you won't ever, ever in his new creation give yourself over to a bad habit again. How's that for a promise? That's the hope of Jesus. And that's the hope that he offers you and I tonight. Wherever you're from, whatever you've done, however long your track records of bad habits and their consequences lead you, Jesus, by the power of his Holy Spirit, can come and meet you now. He's done that with me. He's done that with several in the room, and give you an entirely new heart, one that seeks to please and live and please him forever. Would you like that? Perhaps there's some of you in the room that would, and you're not from a religious background. Well, I'm going to give the chance for you to pray along with me now. And this is a prayer to receive that Jesus, receive that power from him to live a new life, to have a fresh start, to know that your track record is wiped clean. And if you'd like that, I'm going to give you that opportunity to pray along with me now. Okay? So why don't we all just close our eyes to, give a bit of space for those that want to respond in that way. And if this is you, you might still have questions about God, and that's absolutely okay. I still have questions about God. But you think there's something in the power and story of Jesus that compels me to give him a go, please pray along with me now. He loves you so much. He wants you to be with him forever and for you to live a life free of guilt. So let me pray. Father, thank you that in Jesus you came to be near us, not just to recline in our company, welcoming us as we are, not just product of religious institution, but telling it how it is and holding up a mirror to our lives and our hearts and showing us what we're really like. Thank you that you give us the diagnosis that we desperately need for our habits. Forgive me, Father, for times that I constantly sabotage mine and other people's lives by walking away from you and doing my own thing. Please would you come into my life and make me whole. Please would you come into my life and give me a new heart. Release me from the burden of habits, the guilt of my track record, and give me true freedom in what you've already done for me. I ask this in your name. Amen. Brilliant. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to hand back to Jot.
Cheers. Thank you for that. Cool. I think we're gonna have some music, some worship. I'm not sure exactly what's going on right now, but I think it's meant to be worship music. This is again a very weird thing that Christians might do. We're gonna sing some songs. You don't have to sing if you don't want to sing. Like there's no nothing stopping you. But basically, following on from the talk that just happened, if you're like stuck in something and like you're finding all your satisfaction in that, but it won't satisfy you, like I'm genuinely I'm begging you, like no matter what, if it's porn, if it's like drugs, if it's like alcohol, if it's gambling, if it's like violence, if it's like theft, if it's like games, if it's education, whatever it is, Jesus is way better than that. Like 100%, I'm telling you, like from my experience and people's experiences here, and just Jesus can satisfy you fully. in that. So please, like, find if you, and whether you're a Christian or you say you're a Christian, or you don't care, or you're anti-religion, or you're some other religion. If you're stuck in that, please find someone here, and just talk to them about that. Maybe get prayer for that. Because genuinely, I think Jesus is the solution, as Joe just said, to that. But yeah, want to come up. Yeah, you don't need to sing. It's not like you got it's concert nothing. Basically, it's in the background. Just talk about the talk we just had with the people around you. Sorry, I'm a bit confused right now, but yeah, that's it.
Okay. Is this working? Okay. Hi, no. Okay. Is this mic on? I don't even think this mic's on. Is it? Yeah, it is on. Just
should give his only son to make a wretch his treasure. How great the pain of searing loss. The Father turns his face away as wounds which mar the chosen one bring many sons to glory. Behold the man upon a cross, my sin upon his shoulders. Ashamed I hear my mocking voice call out among the scoffers. It was my sin that held him there until it was accomplished. His dying breath hath brought me life. I know that it is finished. I will not boast in anything, no gifts, no power, no wisdom, but I will boast in Jesus Christ, his death and resurrection. Why should I gain from his reward? I cannot give an answer, but this I know with all my heart, his wounds have paid my ransom. Why should I gain from his reward? I cannot give an answer, but this I know with all my heart, his wounds have paid my ransom. You are making new wine. In the soil I now surrender. You are breaking new ground. So I yield to you and to your careful hand. When I trust you, I don't need to understand. Make me a vessel, make me an offering, make me whatever you want me to be. See, I came here with nothing, but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. In the crushing, in the pressing, you are making new wine. In the soil I now surrender. You are breaking new ground. So make me your vessel, make me an offering, make me whatever you want me to be. See, I came here with nothing, but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. vessel. Make me an offering. Make me whatever you want me to be. I came here with nothing, but all you have given me. Jesus, bring you out of me. Jesus, bring you out of me. Jesus, bring you out of me. Amen.
Guys, just sorry to interrupt your conversations. Just to let you know, guys, listen real quick. Just to let you know, yo, you man, listen. Listen. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt the conversation and everything. Please carry them on. But like officially, if you want to head, you can head. But also, there's books that you guys are reading from. Please take them. They're for free. Don't say no to free stuff. That's always a good way to live your life. But also, yeah, if you felt like you want to talk to someone about this, please talk to people about it. And yeah, we're holding more events tomorrow, and at the lunch bar at the where is it? At Bookable Room 1, and also again here tomorrow at 7:30. Also, Dala Donut. Check Instagram. Basically, there'll be some stuff there. But yeah, and there's pizza in the evening. So again, more free stuff. So a free book tonight, and a free book tomorrow. There you go. Okay. Good night.